Warning: this video is extremely low effort and was streamed live on Twitch TV Mysterifruffleness. Go follow me there. Viewer discretion is advised.
We will begin and start off with some of the first Iranian empires. We have ourselves 5 different categories. You have superpower, major power, regional power, small power, and who. Who indeed. Who cares? Alright, who the fuck is this? So let's kick it off with the first nation. It will be the Qajars. Now the Qajars in terms of the Iranian dynasty are quite shit. If we were to see that their flag, quite good. They have a very good looking flag, S-tier flag design. There's a man behind the lion. I am unsure what it means.
Maybe he's too busy playing Conflict of Nations. Conflict of Nations is a free-to-play online PvP strategy game where you can LARP as a real country in a modern global war. Fight up to 128 players in epic real-time strategy that can take place over the course of weeks, helping you hundreds of types of units including tanks, jets, nuclear submarines, and more. Forge alliances or conquer your neighbors using epic strategy to take over the world. My favorite aspect of this game is the PvP with the large-scale strategy, reminding me of old school RTS games. You can play on PC and mobile, and you can get an exclusive gift of 13,000 gold and 1 month's free subscription in the description below. The offer only lasts for 30 days, so don't miss out.
He has like a nose here or something. I'm actually... There's like some symbolism going on that I'm not entirely sure about. You know, it's quite cope. You see like all these areas. This could have been Iran. These all could have been Iran right here. This this area, this here. Definitely parts of Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, you know, or Arab parts, who gives a hell. But like Azerbaijan, oh, major L. Major L. So I want to give them a who category because who cares about these guys? I think that they were pretty much the most worthless of the Iranian empires or dynasties. So I'll put them there for now. But, you know, we could change it. We could change it. Next would be the Assyrian Empire. This is not an Iranian empire by the traditional sense. But hey, the Assyrian Empire. Look at that. They're like, they're big as hell. Woo, look at that big boy over there, right? Goes into a Western Iran here. We don't really have any information on what the hell is going on east of this. But essentially these guys have this area. So in terms of Iranian territories, I think Assyria is definitely it's definitely like a D tier, right? Because like obviously they have such a small portion of Iran, but they are considered a major power. They honestly considered a superpower, honestly, if I'm being honest. The fuck how Judah survived? I don't fucking know. I don't know how Judah survived actually this nonsense. They just kind of ignored it. They were like, I don't want to go over here. So I will put the Assyrians in, actually, I would put them in major power. They are a major power, but they're not S tier because they're not a major Iranian power, right? So Assyrians, A tier. Who are these guys? These are Samid. Samid Empire right here. If you play Crusader Kings 2, you are well aware of them. They have a very nice Persian LARP going on. I had a argument with a friend that they were, well, essentially, I was saying that they were very much a Persian faction and stuff. However, they do speak Arabic. This does not make them an Arab faction, though. They are definitely Iranian. They're an Iranian empire, part of the Iranian intermezzo, and we'll see a couple of these nations soon. These are nations that kind of split off from the Abbasids, the Umayyads. They sort of did their own thing. In any case, Samids for me would be considered definitely a regional power. These are just one of the many intermezzo kingdoms. They're very small. They're wholesome, you know, and they don't last that long. The Samids, as you can tell, only lasted for a small amount of time. 1819 to 1892. And some of these nations here that we're going to be looking at are way longer. Though, wait, how long have they been? Oh, they've actually been around for a while. I'm gonna hesitate on putting them on a major power tier list because putting them next to the Assyrians is kind of wrong. But they definitely are on the top of the regional power. Timurid Empire. Okay, so I think we all know why Timurids are on this list. They're the big boys. They burned most of Iran down to the ground, honestly. They're cool as hell. Only Tamerlane, though, And then their descendants afterwards, they were more, what was it? His son was actually more of like a, yeah, Ulugh Beg Observatory. So they got some pretty cool things going on in the Timurid Renaissance. I would definitely consider them a major power. Are they a superpower is the question. I would say no, only because they didn't last that long. They did break apart after the few successors of Tamerlane. And then, well, that's it. That's all she wrote. So I'm going to put them under major power, definitely, for sure. Tamerlane, biggest mass murderer? Definitely the Eren Yeager of our universe. Thank you for the follow, Ali 2007. Who the fuck are these guys? Oh, these are Urartu. So I'll show these guys right now. They're like the proto-Iranians, the mountain dwellers over here. So they're before the Assyrian Empire by a long shot. I would consider the who the fuck is this? But they're very important, actually. No, they're probably more important to the Armenians, to be honest. So I'm definitely gonna put them on the who category, but don't knock them. Okay, they have a pretty cool history. Islamic Republic of Iran. I would say they're a regional power, but here's the thing, right? We're comparing the Islamic Republic to all the Iranian empires. And so because of that, I'm putting them on small power. I think that in comparison to even other Middle Eastern nations, the Islamic Republic is very weak. Getting sanctioned is an L. Not having a modern air force is a big L, and a navy. I'm going to say that they're a small power, honestly. Not as strong as these other guys. But they are very significant because they're the current regime today. I think that their proxy wars are pretty cool. Good job on committing war crimes. You got an A in my book. Parthian Empire. These are the horse archers. They're very cool. They beat the Romans up a couple of times, and they also lost to the Romans a couple of times. Maybe we can look at this fucking Chad over here. Big man. Big mustache. This is what I look like IRL. This is my Tinder profile picture. So as you can see, the Parthians are a pretty noteworthy empire. A pretty noteworthy horse archer empire. I definitely want to explore them a lot more. Now, I would consider them a regional power and not a major power. But here's the thing. The Parthians were probably the only ones that hold off on the Romans. So, I don't know. It's hard to really say here about either major power or regional power. They do have big hats, so regional power is definitely for them. So I'll put them on regional power, but for now, they definitely weren't able to cause the damage to Rome that the later Iranian empires would have. Achaemenid Empire. I think you guys know where this is going. Superpower. This is the world's first superpower. This is the largest Persian empire, the largest Iranian empire, the strongest Iranian empire, I don't know what else to really say to convince you guys. They had a more free society than the Spartans that they were fighting. They had 4 capitals. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. The founder was killed by the Scythians, by Tommy Reyes, but we don't have to talk about her. They did sort of get their asses kicked by the Macedonians, but I mean, you know, if you're going to lose to anybody, you're going to lose to Alexander the Great. And I think up next, Alexander the Great. Now, I'm going to put Alexander the Great as, in terms of an empire, he did conquer the world's first superpower, right? He did do well. But his empire fell apart soon after, very soon after his creation. So I would put it as a, what would be good for Alexander the Great's empire? Maybe a regional power? Definitely not a major power. Definitely not a major power. But a regional power. They laid the groundwork. But actually, you know what? Probably even who? Do you guys even remember Alexander's empire? I don't think so. Definitely. But you can't deny his influence. You cannot deny Alexander the Great's influence. And he did take out a superpower. I think that's regional power at least. At least. Okay, Elam. Elam are another proto-Iranian civilization. They're very important. They're probably more important than these guys. But I'm going to still put them as who, because who are they? Do you know? I don't know. But they're a very small power. They would eventually be conquered and destroyed, so not doing so hot. Who are these guys? These are the Buyids. The Buyids. Okay, so the Buyids would basically be the Persian and Iranian Empire that would split off from the Abbasids and form their own sort of like kingdom and rule over the Abbasid Caliphate, which is very cool. So I would honestly put them as a pretty major power just by that like alone, being able to control the Abbasid Caliphate with your own empire. They were eventually taken down by another one on this list, but we'll talk about them later. Now, who are you? That's a good question. I'm gonna have to, I have no idea what I just, so these are like the Jalrid dynasties. These are the post-Ilkhanate dynasties. They're very small and very tiny, very insignificant. Jalrids, Chabanids, Muzaffarids. Let me go ahead and move these nations along because I'm just noticing right now what these nations are. So all 5 of these nations are nations of the Iranian Intermezzo. Yeah, the Iranian Intermezzo. So this is a period of various Iranian Muslim dynasties that sort of survived with the decline of the Abbasids, but the rise of Sunni Islam in Iran. So I would call basically all these empires small powers because of that, being able to split off and do their own thing. And because of that, I'll probably put them on D tier. They all sort of existed around the same time as each other, but not exactly. Khwarezmians. So I'm gonna put these guys as a small power. And that's only because the Khwarezmians would be the ones to piss off Genghis Khan, which was very famous, and he would end up ruffle stomping all of Iran. In fact, pretty much destroying all of the Iranian empires and all of the Muslim civilizations actually in their way. Thank you for the follow. The Khwarezmians really did fail. Granted, it's not like the Mongols would have been peaceful for long. As we could probably tell, the Mongols would have probably invaded the Khwarezmians, just like how the Mongols invaded all of their neighbors. So it's not really their fault, but it's really hard to say. What is the next nation on our list? This one is very white, so I can't really tell what it is. Akwainlu. Akwainlu is... shouldn't have fought on Flatlands. Akwainlu is very funny. They basically destroyed Karakwainlu, but in the process, they also helped the Safavid dynasty survive. So in a way, they brought about the start of the Safavid dynasty. So in a way, I would consider them pretty much on the level of who tier, definitely for sure. Then we have the Gashanids. These are an Afghani empire. They didn't last for too long. But when you look at here, they have a pretty sizable empire. Like, they're huge. Humongous. They're just stretching across, doing just fine. And a very Persianized society, too. So, I could consider them a major power. Let's see how long they lasted for. 1977 to 1186. I would say that's a pretty good amount of time. I'd give them definitely a major power type vibes over there. Definitely. Now over here, these are the Afghani Hoteks. They didn't really last long. 30 years. Definitely who. They basically were the punching bag of Nadir Shah. Okay, Mongol Empire. Definitely a superpower. Not in the ways that Iran would have wanted. It is said that apparently 90% of Persians died during the Mongol rule. That is because the Mongol Empire would conquer Iranian cities, burn them to the ground. They would kill all the inhabitants there. They would also ruin the crop fields and destroy the irrigation. So we could definitely see that it's quite a lot of cope for Iran actually, but they're still a superpower. Mongols, giving them that. All right, so with that break done, let's go ahead and get on with the rest of our tier list. So, starting with the next nation, we have the Zand dynasty. They brought a lot of reforms and liberalistic values, and They were more or less a very stable empire. Probably the nicest Iranian empire to ever exist, period, actually. They were not a very long-lasting empire, as you can see, 1751 to 1794. So only 40 years. Really a small empire, but my favorite, definitely my favorite. Median Empire. These guys were a pre-Islamic Iranian group of people. They had quite a massive empire. They were eventually taken down by Cyrus the Great of the Achaemenids. And they were only able to do that because the Median king was the grandfather of Cyrus the Great himself. So it's very interesting in that regard. Did they have beef with the Mode and Mean empires? But the Median Empire were taken down by Cyrus the Great and the Achaemenids because of that. I would consider them a major power, definitely, for sure. I mean, you don't stretch across this land and destroy the Assyrian Empire and not be called a major empire. Afsharids. The Afsharid Empire was an empire led by Nadir Shah. He's considered the Napoleon of Iran. He's a very cool guy, obviously. He, in the way, I would call him a Napoleon of Iran because of the fact that he would revolutionize gunpowder weaponry in Iran. So, at times, his drill and the way that he would fire his weapons and stuff, right, with his cannons and his, like, infantry and stuff like that, it could be considered similar to the Prussian system of warfare. And basically, he had the strongest military in the world at the time, beating up the Afghanis, the Turks, Arabs, pretty much fought everybody, honestly. He would inevitably cause his empire to fall apart because he gouged out his son's eyeballs. And then after he did that, he became more paranoid because he had malaria. And then his own troops killed him. And then his empire fell apart. Yeah, Nadir also beat the Portuguese. So I would consider him a regional power. His empire didn't last long, but when it did have its max power, it was a superpower. Definitely a major power. Absolutely. Oh, they're the Safavids. Safavid Empire. Now, I'm gonna put them as a major power. I am not gonna put the Safavids as a superpower. Why? Because the Safavids were right next to two superpowers, the Mughals and the Ottomans. However, the Safavids were able to punch above their weight, though. Like, that's definitely for sure. And oftentimes, the Safavids would be able to beat the Ottomans and the Mughals on numerous of occasions. But the Safavids still, at the end of the day, they're not an S-tier faction. They were boxed in. They had a lot of currency issues. And at the end of the day, they became very weak and complacent. In fact, the Safavids stopped declaring war on people altogether, actually, because they just couldn't expand anywhere. Okay, Sassanid Empire time. Sassanid Empire. I'm putting them on S. This is the only empire in history to be able to match Rome in every step of the way. And in fact, being able to beat Rome in multiple of occasions and follow up on it. Not just like the Parthians, where they were able to occasionally beat Rome, but they were able to consistently beat Rome. The Sassanids had amazing cavalry. They had pretty strong trade relations with most of the planet. And on top of that, they expanded massively. Did they not lose to a desert dweller? Yeah, but so did the Romans, so we'll ignore that one. And the Achaemenids lost to the Greeks. We don't subtract points for losing. We subtract points for not trying. And the Sassanids did try, to their credit. But the Sassanids were going through a civil war at the time when the Arabs attacked. So it was very cope. I think of them as S tier. Seleucids. Seleucid Empire. They came after Alexander the Great's empire. I would consider them a regional empire, if a disintegrating empire, definitely for sure. They just were more Greek than Persian, and I don't think they even tried to assimilate, which I feel like is the weakness of all these like Greek empires. They just don't assimilate. Pahlavi. dynasty of Iran. This was Iran after the Qajars. Massive modernization by the monarch, but still a dictatorship because they were ruled over by the Shah. But at this time, Iran didn't have any problems with sanctions or anything like that, except for that small period where they nationalized their oil, and then they got kind of slapped by the Western powers a little bit, which is fucked up, but okay. I would consider them a regional power. This is Iran, I think, at definitely it's contemporary Iran at its strongest, in my opinion. Oh, and these were the Zand, I had them here, and this was the Elamites, I had them here. And that's the list. That's it right there. That's all she wrote. That's, in my opinion, the Iranian Empire's tier list. Thank you for the follow. Should have Death War with Rome. Definitely should have Death War with Rome. If I were to rearrange this list, right? Achaemenid first, Sassanids second, Mongols third. Over here for major powers, I'm gonna put the Safavids above the Assyrians, obviously. And I'll put the Buyids above them. I'll put the Medes above them. And then for here, I'll put Timurid, Ghaznavids, and then Assyrians. Well, Alexander the Great's empire didn't last. So that's why he's over here at regional power. Because honestly, I mean, how long did Alexander the Great's empire last? It wasn't long. In terms of regional powers here, I'm going to put it as Afsharids. Definitely. I'm going to put it as Parthians, Samoyeds, the Pahlavi dynasty, Alexander the Great, and then the Seleucids. Iran doesn't control Iraq. It influences Iraq heavily, but there are still anti-Iranian elements in Iraq. Same in Syria. They have shared control. Same in Lebanon. And in Yemen, they're still currently fighting over that. So that's not true. In terms of small powers, I'm going to put the Zand dynasty right here. I'm going to put all the Iranian intermezzo countries above them. In no particular order, really. I'm going to put the... all these small Iranian nations I'm going to put there. And then I'm going to put these guys above the Islamic Republic. And then in the who category, this is just equally like, who the fuck are these people? Okay, that's my list. This is my final list right here. I'll post a image on the Discord and I'll upload this to YouTube tomorrow.
If you enjoyed this type of content and would like to see other empires or historical events ranked, comment down below. Once again, Conflict of Nations is a free online PvP strategy game. And remember to click the link in the description for your 1-month premium subscription and 13,000 gold. The offer ends in 30 days.